Hey, good evening, everybody. My name is Dr. Nathan Thompson with Exemplify Health Center, aka the Wellness Way, Yorkville. Happy Monday to you guys. I hope you guys had an incredible, awesome weekend. And welcome to tonight's question and answer live. I want to be able to answer your questions that you have. Before you do that, hey, make sure that you say hello, give me a wave. Let me also know where you're watching from. We have a ton of people that are watching right now. So I'm going to do my best to make it informative, entertaining, and also be able to give back to you guys. And so I appreciate all of you guys so much. I want to be able to give back to you guys, so it's just not me just always talking, but be able to answer some of the questions that you have in regards to your health to help it make sense for you, especially. So if you're watching right now, say hello. Let me know where you're watching from as well. I know that we have Donna. Hi, Donna, from, I'm going to assume it's New Hampshire. Susan from California. Oh, my goodness. Um, and Kathy as well from Sioux City, Iowa. Kathy, I remember you. You've supported us so much. Thank you so much for doing that. And Jean as well. Jean, it's good to see you. Hope you're doing awesome and amazing. I know that we're going to have a lot of people say hello. So I'm going to make sure that when I get to the questions, I don't miss any. Okay. So I have about 45 from Ontario, Canada. Diane, so good to see you. Eileen, it's also good to see you as well. Thank you so much for joining us. Um, I appreciate all of you guys. Stick with me because I'm going to go over a lot of great stuff for you. And Donna, I do see your questions, so I'm going to make sure. Linda from Colorado, how are you? And I'm going to make sure that I get that with a lingering cough, okay? So tonight is all about you guys, and we're going to be doing a question and answer live until probably about 7:45, so about 45 minutes. I got a hard stop because there's somewhere I need to be, which is a date night with my wife. So hope you guys don't mind. But guys, please, I ask you, please make sure that you follow us on these channels on YouTube and Rumble. Right now, we're streaming on Facebook. Yes, we're also streaming on YouTube as well, which I see some YouTube comments coming up. I know that we really can't take any just because of how we have to stream onto Rumble, so we can't take live comments on that. I apologize. But you'll be able to watch it live as well. And so, guys, if you don't follow us, you don't go onto YouTube and Rumble. I love Rumble only because they don't try to do anything weird or something like YouTube does as well. So Rumble is an awesome platform. We're streaming to it live right now. So make sure you go and you watch. There's awesome content creators that you can watch on Rumble as well. So make sure if you don't follow us, please make sure you go over there and give us a follow on both of those platforms. I would appreciate it greatly as well. So follow us on those platforms. And then as well tomorrow, which is going to be on the 30th, which is a Tuesday. Today is Monday. In fact, I have a special announcement for tonight. Tuesday, January 30th is our next inflammation talk. That's tomorrow night. And for if you are within the Chicagoland area, yes, that's within an hour, I would say. Please head on over there, register for the inflammation event. Guys, this will make so much sense for you. I had so many questions that I had posted on Instagram, people talking about balancing hormones. They talked about so many different things, guys, and everything goes wonky when you are inflamed. This can include weight loss resistance. And let me give you kind of and I talked to somebody today at a remote consult, and I believe that she was on the East Coast. And inflammation is tied to inability of people to be able to lose weight. Yes, cancer is a huge inflammatory trigger. Problems with your hormones in regards to infertility, thyroid issues, joint pain, type 2 diabetes, autoimmunity, which it seems like no one has any answer for. I just had a consult earlier today with a wonderful woman with 6 different autoimmune reactions that are taking place, just terrible pain, swollen joints, things like that. She's like, look at me, look at my hands. I can move and things are returning back to normal. She's got an awesome story of restoration, wonderful woman. She just does everything that I ask her to do. And yes, even your hormones, whether they are balanced or imbalanced, all are tied to inflammation. So if you are within the Chicagoland area, please go and register for this in-person event. And if you are out of the Chicagoland area, you can also register for the webinar, which I see a lot of people register for it. I hope you watch it. If you watch it all the way through, you'll have an opportunity to be able to schedule a discovery call with me. And when you schedule that discovery call, you'll have the opportunity for me to look at your labs and give you kind of an idea of what's going on. If we need to look deeper, we'll look deeper. We'll recommend some new ones possibly. I will tell you this, most people's labs are so incomplete. They are so incomplete, and it's terrible to have to tell them that they've spent all this time getting labs, and I'm like, your labs don't tell me everything that I need to know. So if we need to look at more deeper labs, I'll also let you know as well. And so we'll start that process of being able to work with you. Now, listen, I will actually tell you this when it comes to working with you, is that you have to be coachable. Okay, you just have to be coachable. What do you mean by coachable? Meaning is if I say jump, you're like, yes, I will do it. How high do you want me to jump? And that's not coming from a place in ego, but that just has to come a place where there's so many people want to work with us, but they want to do it their way. And this is, why I had a woman who was on, literally, I counted up and it was 30 different supplements and she was still sick. And I'm like, you can pare this down quite a bit, but let's work on the movers and shakers. And she even told me, she's like, just from what you recommended, I feel so much better. I feel better than I've felt in 10 years. And so you have to be coachable, which means just having a spirit that says, I need your help and I'm willing to do whatever you ask me to do. I won't steer you wrong. I promise you that. So the inflammation webinar, make sure if you're out of the Chicagoland area, but within the contiguous 48 states, please go and watch that and watch it all the way to the end, because you'll see a link that you can go to and you can get registered for a discovery call from me. Yes, it's actually me. I am calling and I'm talking to those people individual. And make sure you watch that inflammation talk all the way through for a chance to register for that discovery call as well. Now, we are finishing up right now. Before I take questions, just a little bit of housekeeping. We're finishing up our meats and veggies only challenge, which is awesome. It's incredible. In fact, I recommended somebody do it earlier today, only because of looking at what was happening with blood sugars, what was happening with some liver enzymes, what was happening with a lot of different things, and inability of really poor sleep. We're finishing that up, but coming in March, so we're going to take a little bit of a pause in February, but coming in March, you don't want to miss this. This is going to be our You Don't Know Squat Challenge. Isn't it amazing how many people just can't even do a squat? And in fact, they probably think they're too old or, and whatever. I'm like, you're not too old. You're not too old. And in fact, squatting is an innate movement. Look at any 1-year-old or 2-year-old and they can squat perfectly, which means that if you can't do it at 20 years of age, it's not because you're too old. It's because you've lost that innate gift. So we're going to give you some of the tools on what you can do every single day in order to regain mobility. Remember, there's a SAID principle, specific adaptation to imposed demands. The body will always adapt to a demand that you're placing on it. So we're going to create a little bit of stress, a little bit of a demand, a good stress, in order to help you get into a squat position. I've seen 75-year-olds in Vietnam who squatted literally for hours on end. And people, it seems like they're 40 years of age. They're like, I can't squat. It's just terrible for my knees. There's a reason why it happens. But guys, if you go to this right here, if you just type in bonfire.com, you'll be able to find our store that we have. And I want people to get a t-shirt out of solidarity. Okay. So when people see you wear that t-shirt, they're like, hey, what do you mean you don't know squat? I'm kind of offended. And you're like, well, don't be offended. Here's what I did, because we want people to get interested in what you're doing. We want people to get interested in their health. Nobody likes someone who is a food Nazi, just as an FYI. But if you can make them interested or curious about what you're doing, they're much more likely to listen. Okay. So this will be awesome. And we'll give you the free resources. I'll be taping it this weekend, then we have to edit the videos. So probably at the beginning of March of 2024, we'll be able to come to you and release it. And it'll be very easy for you to follow every single day. Remember, what wins? Consistency. That's what wins. That's why I tell people is that health isn't restored through some kind of miraculous type of thing. Health is restored by consistently doing the things that you need to do. Yes, and one of them is probably getting some mobility back as well. Okay. So if you go to that Bonfire store, you'll see awesome, awesome t-shirts that you can get. And yes, it can get shipped directly to how you order a t-shirt. It will get printed and shipped directly to your house, which is absolutely awesome. It's a great, great company that we're working for. Now, this is from this past weekend. I want to give a shout out right now. I know he's watching, to this guy right in the middle, who I still think I'm taller than him. I think I'm a little bit taller, maybe about a quarter of an inch. But this is my son, Talon, who, by the way, is 17 years of age today. He's 17 years. I remember the day he was born. He was such a cute little baby. Everyone just he's such a awesome, awesome kid. I'm so proud of him. But he is working with me. I don't say for me, but he's working with me in the office. And this is myself and my staff, Dr. Brian, Kellyanne, and Leanne. We took a trip up to Green Bay, Wisconsin for a training up in Green Bay for about 3 days. So we had the opportunity to train, to learn, to become better, and be able to hang out and have an awesome time. And my son Talon came with me because he's part of the team. And today he is 17 years of age, and he is an awesome, wonderful kid, very mature. And we do have a lot of people who are trying to set him up at the front desk with their granddaughters. But he's taken, ladies. Sorry about that. But he's a wonderful. I want to give a shout out to my staff, who is absolutely wonderful. They do a great job. And that's the number one thing that people say at the office, like, wow, you got a great staff. I'm like, I do. They take so much stress off of me. I will give a shout out to them until forever. They do such a great job. But just remember this. It's because they are trained and they work hard, and they're always working on getting better. So if you guys can, just give a shout out to Talon, Talon. It's his 17th birthday today, and I'm so proud of him. He gets good grades, and he works about 20 hours a week in the office. Yes, IRS, he really does work. So just give him some love. That now I want to go over an interesting. I'm going to take some questions here in just a second. I know that I missed one. I'm going to scroll back, so don't worry. I'm going to get to it. But I saw this come across my news feed earlier last week. And this comes from a CEO at the World Economic Forum. Yes, I know that it's terrible, but he said something very interesting. He's a CEO of the largest insurance company in Canada. And here's what he said, wow, people are living longer lives, but they're not living healthier ones. And there's 4 reasons why that's happening. So basically, if you look up that article, you'll be able to see it. I'll probably do a video short on Instagram, TikTok, whatnot, just to explain why. But real quickly, he said, over the last 50 years, the average lifespan has gone from about the early 60s up to like 78 years of age. And so we have added 15 years to our lifespan. But the problem is that extra 15 years that we've added to our lifespan is not in good health. And the reason why is because people eat like garbage. In fact, most people's kids eat like garbage as well. And he said the reason why we're eating ultra processed foods leading to chronic illness, that doctors are just throwing medications at, not truly changing the reason why it's happening. And we're just spent in chronic illness. And he's like, that shouldn't, the reason, when we say that we're living longer, that shouldn't be our badge of honor, because we're living longer, sicker. And this is what I say in the inflammation talk, is just because you can put out a fire, which is the reason why our healthcare system is so good at putting out fires, that's why we live longer. Because a lot of people don't die of infection. Thank God for antibiotics, right? But we're also, because we're living longer, we're also living longer, sicker. And he looked at the amount of time that people spend being chronically sick and not feeling good. And the reason why is because our healthcare system is so good at putting out fires. But if you want to be just so dismayed, and if you want to just be depressed, get sick, and then figure out how the doctor is going to get you back to health. Because unless they are 100% relying on the innate capacity of the body to be able to heal, they're not going to offer any kind. I will say this, most medical advice when it comes to health is just plain wrong or it's horrible. I'm not even sorry saying that. It's just very poor advice when it comes to health. In fact, if you really want to know, ask your primary care doctor, doc, what's the definition of health? If they can't give you an answer, then why are they in charge of your health? That's one of the biggest things. And one of the reasons why is because of how we eat. It's also because of chronic stress they talked about, poor sleep, things like that. And in fact, he said most people over 60, a huge percentage of them have a increased amount of stress because of loneliness. So he just admitted it, is that loneliness is a big stressor. And then I'm looking at this and I'm like, why did we do that over the last 3 years and isolated people, which is why you saw depression, anxiety, things like that just go way up because we try to isolate, socially distance, and stay away from people. And it had some huge stressful consequences, and it impacted people's health. I pray to God they never attempt to do that again, but maybe they will if you've ever heard of disease X. Okay. So we're living longer than ever before, but we're not living healthier. So we want to give you a great 75, 80 years in great health in which you have abundant energy, you have great mobility. And in fact, the kids aren't saying, Mom, Dad, it's time for you to go to the nursing home and for you to spend being alone in isolation, basically just eating glue as nutrition for the rest of your life. Okay. So, I'm going to take some questions here in just a second. If you're watching, please make sure that you say hello. Let me know also where you are watching from. I see we have people that are watching right now, not only on Facebook, but I see some people joining on YouTube as well. On Instagram, I asked a question. We had a lot of great questions, but I want to show one that I didn't leave an answer for because it requires a little bit of context, a little bit of nuance that I just can't type out really quickly. Dr. Nate, what are your thoughts on the carnivore diet? Okay, carnivore diet, which is mostly meat. About if I said eating mostly meat, because have you ever seen people that just absolutely swear by it? What are your thoughts on the carnivore diet? Okay, so I'm going to show you this. I'm going to show you this that comes from PubMed. Now, a lot of people who say, oh, I feel so much better on the carnivore diet. And I want you guys to think of this. The carnivore diet, which is just primarily a meat type diet, very high protein diet. It's the reason why people feel better is because it's one of the it's the ultimate elimination diet. Okay. So people are going to eliminate probably a lot of food allergies, which is why it eliminates for the time being a lot of bloating, a lot of swelling, a lot of joint pain, things like that, because you're eliminating a lot of things that you could be having an immune response to. So, and people say, oh, I feel so much better. And I'm like, give it enough time and you probably won't. You'll start to see some changes taking place. And here's the reason why. This comes from PubMed. And it's a study that they did, or a review that they did. And this was almost 10 years ago. And it says this: the role of short chain fatty acids in health and disease. You can measure this on a stool test. Did you know that? You can measure this 100%. So you can see in your stool the presence or lack of presence of short chain fatty acid production. Okay. So let's get into this. The role of short chain fatty acids in health and disease. There is now an abundance of evidence to show that short chain fatty acids, SCFAs, play an important role in the maintenance of health and also in the development of disease. Short chain fatty acids are a subset of fatty acids, now listen to this, that are produced by the gut microbiota during the fermentation of partially and non-digestible polysaccharides. Okay, I want you to think about what does that actually mean. That production of short chain fatty acids happens by the gut microbiome when you have fiber, soluble and insoluble fiber. They take that you can't digest and they can break it down, and their byproduct is known as short chain fatty acids. Okay. The highest levels of short chain fatty acids are found in the proximal colon, right where the small intestine goes into the colon, and they are used locally by enterocytes or transported across the gut endothelium or epithelium or the membrane and into the bloodstream. Okay. So these findings highlight the role of short chain fatty acids as a major player in the maintenance of the gut and the immune system homeostasis. Given the vast effects of short chain fatty acids and their levels are regulated by what? By diet. They provide a new basis to explain the increased prevalence of inflammatory disease in westernized countries, as highlighted in this chapter. So they talk about the need for short chain fatty acid production. They're produced in the colon. How are they produced? They need food. Short chain fatty acids need fiber. They need fiber. Now, sometimes people are like, I get zero fiber because all I eat is just meat, and they'll feel better temporarily. So, Dr. Nate, what are your thoughts on the carnivore diet? Well, are there people who I have said you need to be on a carnivore type diet? Yes, but I've never had them on it long term. So if you look at any kind of carnivore diet, I really feel that it should be cycled in and out, and that if you are on it, look at people who do it for a long period of time, and they're like, "Oh, I just feel so good," and then say, "Great, get a stool test," and then look at what's happening within the stool. So, is there a need for probiotics? What's happening in the gut barrier? What's the integrity of that barrier? And is there also a need for some level of fiber? Okay. Now, there's a plethora of research that shows that people who get high fiber from their diet do better than people who get absolutely zero. So, this is why when I even talk about hormones, and I'm like, yeah, in general, women shouldn't have six packs. And we have all of the women who show their six packs on Instagram, and they want someone to comment on that video, and I'm like, great. If you disagree, send me your labs, and I guarantee that if you send me your labs showing your hormone profile, that it's going to be incomplete as well. No one wants to send their labs. They don't want to. They don't want to put their money where their mouth is. So when it comes to a carnivore diet, should it be cycled in and out? Yes, I believe that it should be. And I believe also, if you've been on it for a long period of time, you really should get a stool test and see what's happening within the microbiome, short chain fatty acid production, and what's happening those things if you are missing some things. That's why when you do one diet for a long period of time, you could be missing a lot of different things. If you don't believe me, talk to someone who goes vegan. Okay. And you'll see a lot with veganism. You'll see a lot of stress, anxiety. You'll see some mental health issues that are going on. Eventually, I guarantee you're going to see those things that are going on. So that's why there's no one diet that works for everyone. That's why getting your foods tested, stool tested could be a great start as far as what you should be doing and what you might need to change as well. So let's get into some questions. Okay. So if you do have some questions, now you can start to ask those. Okay. So we got about 25 minutes that we can do and take some questions. Donna Spencer, my husband got a cold about a month ago and has a lingering cough. Any suggestions how I get rid of this? No symptoms other than the cough. Okay. So you have noticed that people, if they get some kind of lung infection, they can have a persistent cough for a long period of times. It always takes me back to the time that I had pneumonia for about 6 to 8 weeks and I had a cough every night. Okay. Every night. Now, I know that my immune system was shot at that point because basically what did I live on? Basically ramen noodles, sleeping 4 to 5 hours a week. I guarantee if I would have tested my immune system, it would have been absolutely tanked. Okay. So if he's got a lingering cough from just a cold, then my suggestion would be is check his immune system. Check his immune system because he might be deficient in some immune system cells that help him to overcome that. Now, with any kind of viral infection, it can take anywhere from maybe as little as a couple of days, several days, maybe 2 weeks, up to 8 to 10 weeks in order to clear that out. What's the difference? The amount of immune cells they have that help to clear out any kind of viral infections. Okay. But if he still has a cough, I would also ask this question: is he on any other medications too? Certain blood pressure medications can cause a dry chronic cough. Okay, it's one of the hallmark signs of some of the side effects. I say side effects tongue in cheek. They just call it side effects because they're like, we don't like it, so we're just going to call it a side effect. I'm like, no, that's an effect. Do it long enough, and that's actually an effect. So But are there things that he can do in order to help strengthen his immune system? Yes. One of the things is get him off his sugars. That's one of the things. There's certain medicinal mushrooms that can help. Things like reishi, chaga can help quite a bit. But remember, your immune system can't make things from nothing. That's why I always say you need to make sure you're getting enough protein in. You got to watch your sugars. You got things like reishi, chaga mushrooms can help with the immune system greatly. But if he still has doing that, if anybody who had any questions, I would be testing his immune response big time. So thank you so much, Donna, for that question. I hope I answered it enough. Okay. Doug Cathy, I drink 1 tablespoon of apple cider vinegar in a cup of water every day. Should this be the first thing in the morning or any meal or just on an empty stomach? Okay. Great question. Here's the biggest thing in regards to apple cider vinegar is that it does this. Yes, the acetic acid helps quite a bit with sugar metabolism, things like that. But when I tell people to take it, tell them to take a straight shot of it if your stomach can handle it, because not everybody's stomach can handle it. Take a straight shot when you're eating a meal. And the reason why is because apple cider vinegar is acidic and it will help with protein digestion within the stomach. So I would only take it if you are, as long as you are eating, I would take it. The other thing is this. Remember, it's very, very acidic. So you don't want it messing around your teeth too long because it can wear away your enamel. And that's why I'd say don't let it touch your teeth. Don't swish it around and just go straight down the hatch and then eat after that. So you have the acid in the stomach to help you to break down your proteins. Remember, that's the number one cause of poor protein breakdown in the stomach has to do with stress. And I think I talked about that last week as well. So I would take the tablespoon just straight and just don't let it touch your teeth or anything like that. I would take it before you have a meal. Okay. I would take it prior to a meal. So take it with some kind of purpose. Take it with some kind of purpose. Hopefully that answers your question. So, okay, guys, we're taking live questions right now. I'm scrolling through and I'm seeing a lot of comments that saying happy 17th birthday, Talon. And yes, I'll bring this comment up because it's true. And he looked taller than your father. Deb, we're going to have to ban you. I would be so happy if he's taller than me, but it's kind of a competition right now. I thought you were going to say you look like your father. He does look like a young Jim Carrey sometimes. He's absolutely wonderful. All right, so we're heading over to YouTube. What happens if too much dopamine is released in the mesolimbic system? Psychiatrists theorize that some forms of insanity are related to high dopamine levels. What are your thoughts on this? Okay. It's going to come down to this, Dennis, and I was looking at someone's labs today only because the doctor looked at certain levels of a certain hormone that's released from the adrenal glands, that not cortisol or anything, that has to do with blood pressure control. The first thing the doctor said is you're releasing too much of this hormone. Now, it just comes down to this. Does the body make mistakes? If you think the body makes mistakes, then you're always going to try to tinker with it. The body's built for health and it's built for adaptation. Why do you think we get such great clinical results? Because the body doesn't mess up. The body doesn't make mistakes. It doesn't mean there's not going to be a consequence if someone's got very sassy behavior. But if you are talking about issues with too much dopamine or too much serotonin or not enough serotonin, go ahead and tinker with it. Let me know the results. Because I have seen people who are like, yes, I went on an SSRI and things are better. Now things aren't better. What's going on? Because the body has adapted to it. However, one of the biggest things that I would tell you is this, is that there are some people who are constantly having high levels of immune response and also stress responses. And they actually may have certain gene variations, catecholamine methyltransferase, COMT is what it's called, and they may not break down catecholamines very well, which is basically adrenaline, stress hormone, things like that. And if they don't break those down very well, then if they have a stress response, this can linger for a long period of time. So if you guys are looking at dopamine, remember dopamine, a huge component of it's coming from the adrenal glands. Dopamine is also made deep within the brain as well. And people typically who are very, very low in dopamine tend to have some problems with risk taking and addiction as well, because they're trying their best to try to get things up in order to try to stimulate dopamine release as well. That's a great question. And in fact, if someone did have a question they were coming in, I'd say, okay, check your neurotransmitters. You can measure your neurotransmitters. Here's what's so interesting is when you talk about kids who are having issues when it comes to their brain, whether it's depression, whether it's anxiety, or whether it's ADD, ADHD, and things like that, you can check how neurotransmitters are made, and you can't check them in the blood. You have to check them in the urine, and you can trace it back to the organ to where that's being made. And so this is why a neurotransmitter test can be so good, but we wouldn't do just one neurotransmitter test. If someone came in and they're just like, I want a neurotransmitter test, I'm like, test this too, so that we can just get down to things just a little bit quicker. But I think that's a great question, because a lot of people think that you need to tinker with your neurotransmitters. Neurotransmitters aren't released too high or too low. Same thing with this woman. They're like, yes, the adrenal glands are releasing like too much aldosterone. And I looked at her and I said, they're not releasing too much. One of the reasons why, I said, did your doctor put you on a low salt diet? She's like, yep. And I was like, go on a low salt diet, and your body is desperately trying to use that hormone to try to regulate your blood pressure, as well. So that's why the body's not making a mistake, and it's not messing up. It's the same thing when it comes to hormones. Oh my goodness. And people are talking about, oh, I need to be on this hormone, and this hormone. Hormones respond. They will make you feel lousy, but it's not the reason why you feel lousy. So hormones they're the result, but they're not the cause. Your hormones aren't going to, for no reason, just misfire. There's a reason why those things happen. So that's a great, great question. Great, great question. All right, let's see. I'm going to try to not skip over everything. Jordan Marie. Jordan, how are you? Best advice for type 1 diabetics. Okay, type 1 diabetes. You guys know the difference between type 1 and type 2? I know that they teach it in school, and you gotta look at this huge list of certain type of things. Type 1 diabetes is an immune reaction in which the pancreas has been destroyed. Now, is that, number one, is that because the immune system is all of a sudden messing up? No, there has to be a trigger in order for that to happen. Also with type 1 diabetes, it just doesn't happen all at once. Same thing with the thyroid. Like the thyroid just doesn't get destroyed with Hashimoto's within a period of like a week. It's a constant process. And the reason why no one finds it, they don't find it until enough of the pancreas gets destroyed so badly that now your blood sugars are super elevated, and your breath and urine may smell very fruity because you can't get sugar into the cell, and now you're just weight loss, and you're losing a bunch of fat as a result. Okay, so best thing advice for type 1 diabetes is, number one, you still have to watch your sugars. You can become a type 1 and a type 2 diabetic. And so there's a lot of people with type 1 diabetes. I can eat whatever I want because I can just inject a bunch of insulin. Well, you still can become insulin resistant. Okay. So you still can develop a problem with that. But the biggest thing is, if you can catch it in time, you can try to get that pancreas to be able to recover. So you still need to watch your sugars, number one. But then number two, you can even look this up, Gymnema. First thing I would do is probably give very high doses of Gymnema. And Gymnema has some pancreatic regenerative capacity too. So it just depends on where they're at in that autoimmune type process. But with autoimmunity, you got to reduce the trigger, number one. That's one of the biggest things. You got to reduce that trigger. And it's very hard trying to control blood sugars and your insulin levels all the time. But it doesn't mean that you just can't do your diet, because you can just get insulin into your body, because you can still become insulin resistant, just like anybody who has anybody who has a working pancreas. Okay. Um, so hopefully that answers your question. Let me see if I can search for another question. I know that we got Alice. It's good to see you from Crivets, Wisconsin. This is where Dr. Patrick Flynn, I think he's from originally. He's from Crivets. I think I was my staff were up not too far away from Crivets, Wisconsin, maybe 45 minutes or so. Linda Larson says, "How do you lower blood pressure?" Okay, how do you lower blood pressure? A lot of it has to do with what's causing it. So a lot of it has to do with what is causing high blood pressure. And when you think about it, there's a couple of different reasons why. Okay. Number one, if there's a lot of arterial swelling and inflammation, it's going to cause that to get to start to contract, and that's going to make the heart. This is fluid dynamics. The heart has to beat harder against something that is swollen and is chronically constricted. Okay. The other thing too that you got to look at is you got to look at your inflammatory markers. Second thing is you also have to look at some issues with stress too. If a bear is chasing you, your blood pressure is going to go up. It's not the body doing the wrong thing. It's the body always doing the right thing because it's trying to get out of a crisis or emergency. So if you say, how do you lower your blood pressure? We have seen people, and listen, I don't have a license to take people off, but if you work with a good doctor, do the things right for a long period of time, we'll have people will be like, oh, I'm just getting so dizzy here. I'm like, check your blood pressure. And their blood pressure comes back and it's too low, which means they're getting very dizzy or very like fatigued and tired when they move suddenly, get up from a seated position, and they look at their blood pressure and it's going way too low. And doing right things with your lifestyle, that can be the effect of actually doing it. I would also want to know with those people, what is your endothelial function look like? And the endothelial lining is the lining of that vascular system. And this is why certain things like Neo 40, beets, things like that can actually help with endothelial dysfunction that can cause some issues when it comes to high blood pressure as well. And it's usually not just take this and everything is just going to be fine. There's a lot of different factors that can take place. So it can be a stress response. And even if you look at all the medications when it comes to blood pressure, they all have different functions, whether it's an ACE inhibitor, whether it's a calcium channel blocker, or whether it's a beta blocker too, that has more to do with a stress response. All of them work differently. This is why if you have high blood pressure, I guarantee you this, very rarely are people just on one medication. They're usually on two. They're trying to combine it as much as possible. So many times you'll see people on an ACE inhibitor and also a beta blocker and or a calcium channel blocker. And the biggest thing I would say with blood pressure is how stressed are you? How stressed are you? Because that can play a huge role too. Thank you so much for that questions. All right. I was just prescribed statins as a way of lowering my cholesterol naturally. That's the first thing is that I would say with cholesterol is the body really messing up in regards to that. I've done a live video in regards to cholesterol after menopause and the reasons why after menopause you'll see cholesterol jump up. And remember this, the liver makes cholesterol based on demand. So you have to ask the question, why is my liver making more of it? That's the question that you have to ask. I will tell people is, and we'll check people's cholesterol pre, and post. I just checked a woman's and it was dramatically lower after about 4 to 5 months. I never talked to her once about it. But you're seeing that her cholesterol is actually going down. Is there a way of lowering it naturally? Check your blood sugars is the first thing. Check your liver function, your blood sugars. Make sure that you are checking that. Please work with a Wellness Way doctor in regards to that. There are certain panels that you can run that is going to look at lipid particle sizes and things to see, is this really an issue going on with atherosclerosis or not? But I would say this, one of the best things you can do is add a lot more fiber to your diet. See if you can get 10 grams of fiber to your diet. And that tends to help to work to take out some of the cholesterol and help it to work its way through your system, especially. Okay. So that's a great question. Thank you for doing that. Stephanie Rose from Facebook. I'm struggling with tachycardia, DIS, autonomia. Why would it flare up when I clean up my diet, cut calories, and give up gluten, dairy, and sugar, minimal activity, and pounding, elevated heart rate? Okay. The biggest thing that I would say is this is um, tachycardia, meaning my heart is beating very quickly. And I want you to think of this. Why would the heart have to beat very quickly? It can beat quickly if it's not beating very strong. So it's trying to get blood to the area. So um, there's a lot of different things that this could be. I would say this, please make sure that you get tested properly. Reach out to a Wellness Way doctor. Guys, if you don't have a Wellness Way doctor, please work with them. And it's how you get from point A to point B as quickly as possible. Where you want to go is you want to go to health. And then, but there's so many people, that they're like, I'm going to go to California and I'm just going to wing it. And I'm just going to try to figure out my way how to get to California. I'm going to stop for directions. And in fact, when they start from Chicago to LA, instead of taking a right-hand turn, they take a left-hand turn, and then they find out I'm in Pennsylvania and I need to turn around, go the other way. So please work with a Wellness Way doctor. Now, the other thing is I've cut things out, and here's one of the biggest things. You have no idea how many people have tried to cut foods out, and I'm like, if you really want to know what can cause pounding of the heart, what can cause an immune response, which many times this can be a chronic immune response. It can even be a chronic infection that's going on. When you say I cut out gluten, dairy, and sugar, I'm like, well, how do you know that that's actually an inflammatory protein? That's why you got to get your foods tested. You got to get a bigger idea of all those things that are going on. But I definitely would be testing things a lot deeper. And I wouldn't be actually cutting out the fact that there may be some kind of infection that is going on. There could be some kind of infection that you might not be aware of as well. So we just have to look deeper, especially. Okay. Lois from Facebook asked this question: neuropathy. I'm assuming neuropathy, anything to reverse nerve damage. Well, that just is depending on what's causing it. So this is why getting to the cause is so important. Getting to the cause is so important. Is this neuropathy that could be coming from the spine, or is this neuropathy that's associated with elevated blood sugars? Because there's a big difference between the two. And I want you to think of this: elevated blood sugars for a long period of time. That's why you have diabetic neuropathies, because it damages the nerve system. One of the things, and if it's coming from elevated blood sugars, you got to get your blood sugars under control. But I want you to just go ahead and Google it, thiamine and neuropathies. So you may need a very high amount of thiamine, which is vitamin B1, in order to help with the nerves for them to be able to start to heal. Okay. So thiamine, okay, which I believe is vitamin B1. All right. A question from Ashley. I'd like you to hear your thoughts on this. I clean up my diet and lost weight, cutting out sugars, just eating cleaner. I developed POTS. Oh, I think I just kind of answered this. So bad that I couldn't walk for long with almost passing out. Yes. So you clean up your diet, which is absolutely awesome. However, if you do have some problem with POTS, you have to look deeper. You really do have to look deeper, because there's probably some kind of immune factor that's going on that you might not be able to see. Okay. All right. So Saskia from Facebook, thank you for the question. Natural replacements for SSRIs. So the biggest question that we always ask people is why are you on them? Remember, SSRIs, and this is why I say, hey, this isn't medical advice, but SSRIs are things that you cannot go cold turkey off of. The reason why is you'll go into serotonin syndrome because your body will not make any SSRIs. This is also why they say don't go on things that are going to try to stimulate the liver to metabolize things faster. This is why I say don't go on grapefruit juice. Don't eat grapefruits. Or this is also St. John's wort can speed things up within the liver as well. What are some natural replacements for SSRIs? Now, are there people who say, I'm going to talk to my doctor and I'm going to figure out a tapering plan? I don't even tell them about tapering and to figure it out with their doctor until they've recovered their health up to a certain point. And in fact, I can't even tell them to taper it. But I say, follow what your doctor is asking you as far as a tapering plan, because if they put you on it, then they should sure as heck know how to get you off of it as well. But during that time, are there some things that you can do in order to help make some of the discomfort a little bit easier? The answer is yes. Usually, high dose B vitamins. Yes, that's one thing. Actually, adding in what's known as Alcidonia because it has very huge calming properties like passion flower. Also, 5-HTP can help quite a bit too. And 5-HTP is just actually one conversion away from serotonin. So it's a lot easier for the body to convert it versus having to go through a giant manufacturing process in which the body probably hasn't done it for a long period of time. But anytime that you want to replace SSRIs, you really need to speak to your doctor. And you know what? If they're like, no, you can't go off of these, I just tell people find another doctor. Find another doctor. Okay. Can I recommend a natural flu medicine? Not really, other than just keeping your immune system high. You just have to keep your immune system. Just remember this, you can have a great functioning immune system, but if your immune system has seen it, you probably have a good amount of inflammatory processes going on. Your immune system is always learning. That's why exposure is actually so good. But is there just one thing that's going to take away all of your flu symptoms? Probably not. But this is why I recommend things to help with immunity. We have to probably look at some labs first. But there's things like echinacea, astragalus, things like medicinal mushrooms can help as well. So those things can help, but it requires just a little bit more context. Okay. What is your opinion on live blood analysis? Diane, I don't have much of an opinion on that as well. I know that there are certain doctors that will look at a live blood analysis. I have zero training, in doing that. So I'm not even going to give you an opinion on something that I'm not very well trained on as well. All right, guys. Any more questions that you have? Any other questions? I appreciate, guys, so much your questions. Sometimes I come live and I'm like, what if no one has any questions? We have a ton of people watching right now. So go ahead and stand up. I'm going to take one more question and then I have to go. Okay. So one more question. What you guys got? What do you got for me? All right. As I wait for that last question, guys, if you are from the Chicagoland area, please go up and register for the coming up. Register for our next inflammation talk here at the Wellness Way Yorkville. That's going to be tomorrow, January 30th at 6:00 p.m. Please register for it. Guys, it is absolutely fascinating when we talk about inflammation. That's the first thing that you need to get a hold of. And when people say inflammatory foods and things like that, I'm like, not every food necessarily is inflammatory. Okay. Not everyone is inflammatory, as I'm like, define to me an inflammatory food. You have to have an immune response to the protein, from it. So our inflammation talk is going to be tomorrow in person. If you're watching from India, please don't register for an event that we're having at our office. So our staff is like, oh yeah, we got so many people registered, and then we find out that 4 of them are from England. And guys, you can also watch this for free. And this is our inflammation webinar. If you go to the top of the page, you'll see it on Facebook. You also see it on Instagram and YouTube because you'll follow our link tree, and you can watch the inflammation webinar. You can watch the inflammation webinar. Make sure you have an hour time. You can watch it right now, or you can watch it either on Tuesday or Saturday, I believe at 9:00 your time, 9:00 a.m. your time. But if you do watch it, make sure you watch it all the way through. Make sure you have because it'll take about an hour to watch the whole thing. I hope you find it absolutely fascinating. Okay. And you'll see a link on there to be able to, if you follow that through, you'll be able to schedule with me a discovery call with me in which I'll try to get a better understanding of what's going on with you, and then also how we need to look a little bit deeper. So let me take one more question. Okay. One more question. Okay. Faye, thank you so much for the question. I appreciate you stepping up, answering this. What do you think of low dose doxycycline for rosacea. Okay. Now, I will tell you this, my wife suffered greatly with rosacea, and it had nothing to do with her skin. It had to do with an immune reaction. I even talk about this in the inflammation, because if you looked at her pictures of her face pre and post within 3 to 4 months, it's a night and day difference. It really is. So if someone has rosacea, there's a lot of things that are turning when it comes to the usually the immune system, gastrointestinal system, and things like that. A lot of things when it comes to rosacea, when it comes to acne, things like that. Anything that's happening in the skin is happening from somewhere else. Okay. From somewhere else. And I want you guys to think about it. Where's most of your immune system sit? Everyone says it's the gut. And I'm like, yeah, you're kind of right, but why? And they're like, I don't know why. That's just what I read. But your immune system puts a lot of cells around a barrier when it comes into external to internal environment. That's why you have a lot of your immune system sits under your skin. So I have a lot of your immune system that sits around your gastrointestinal system, because it's a barrier in your lungs and it's coming into contact with external environment. So if you're going to try to protect the castle wall, protect the fort, protect the castle, you're going to put most of your soldiers around the perimeter in order to keep it out of the body. Now, I want you to think of this. If you start to have a lot of gastrointestinal inflammation, the immune cells, they start secreting certain chemicals that some of these other cells that are sitting underneath the skin can start to pick up on, and they can go on high alert, and you can have an inflammatory response to rosacea. You'll see it on the cheeks big time. And that's why you have to look and test deeper. Okay. You have to look and test deeper versus going on some kind of antibiotic or going on, synthetic vitamin A, retinol, things like that. You just have to look a lot deeper. Last question from Sheila. Sheila, how are you? Watching from YouTube. What kind of problems can an abscess tooth cause in my body? That's a great question. You guys ever heard of this? Before I even understood inflammation, when dentists would say, if you got a lot of gum inflammation, it can lead to heart disease. And the reason why is because a lot of inflammation here can lead to inflammation elsewhere too. So if you have an infection, an abscess in your tooth, I've had that before, and that can make you absolutely miserable. And that's why if you don't get it taken care of, that abscess can go and start to erode the jawbone. You can even get an abscess within the sinus cavity. That's painful as well. And you know what people tell me is if you have an abscess tooth, and this depends on how functional it is and where it's at. If you have an abscess tooth, there's a lot that's going on. You probably have already had a crown. You may have already had a big filling multiple times, and you probably have an infection that's gotten down. And depending on how functional the tooth is, sometimes it's best to just pull the tooth, but ask your dentist. In fact, I would go to a holistic dentist in regards to that. And if you're going through that right now, it is painful. And I am so sorry that you're going through it, because I've had it before, and it is so painful. It is just, pain is 911 when it comes to that. So I hope you recover better. I hope you do fine. Thank you so much for that question. All right, guys, if you don't already, make sure that you like our page. Make sure you share this question and answer as well. We have a lot of different things coming up. The You Don't Know Squat Challenge will start in March. This is our announcement. So after February. So make sure, guys, that you are ready for that. You only know that if you follow our page and you subscribe to our page, but we'll release some videos on YouTube. We'll be on Rumble as well, Instagram at Dr. Nathan Thompson. You'll see all of those things. And all you got to do is just follow doing the same thing consistently over a period of time. And what I really, really want to see is I want to see your squat before, and I want to see your squat after to see how well it improves. And if I can do something to help change your life and make it better, then I've done my job. Thank you guys so much again for watching. Be well, guys. And I hope you guys have an awesome rest of your week. And again, we reach out to thewellnessway.com, find a practitioner, find a doctor that's close to you as well. They can help you through this process. We have tons and tons of people who reach out to us. via social media channels and things like that. And we're here to help as much as we can. I don't live on social media as well because I'm in full-time practice. But if I can do something to help, please reach out. Please reach out to me personally as well. I'll do what I can. All right. So, guys, be well, be blessed. I'll see you guys next week for another live. And I may even talk about sleep next Monday, about how to improve your sleep, which my sleep has improved a ton over the last several months. But if you want to know something about sleep, give me a thumbs up. Especially there's a lot of women who are in menopause who are having a heck of a time trying to sleep. And I'll talk about GABA production and things like that. And the role of the uterus in GABA production. Because remember this, if you don't sleep, you don't recover. If you don't recover, you keep getting beat up. And that's when big problems start to happen. So maybe we'll talk about sleep next week. Let me know what your thoughts are. All right, guys, be well, be blessed. I hope you have a great rest of your week. Remember who you are. We will talk to you guys very soon. Be well.